When your spreadsheets start having a lot of data and information on them, one of the things that's difficult is that if it's just data, it's on a spreadsheet, it's black and white, it's hard for the people that are looking at it sometimes to understand the connection of the data to what's important, what's not important, or the message that you're trying to relate. You want to make sure that as you're working with your spreadsheets that you're very aware of how it's formatted, because in a lot of cases when you're presenting that information or you want somebody to go directly to the information you want them to see, or simply being able to categorize it, or they can see sections of the data, you're going to tend to work with fonts, which is what the letters and the numbers look like. You're also going to look at formatting. You may even do things like with fills, so letting things look different on the spreadsheet so that it stands out, or it's easier to connect this color to this color. It's the same data, the same type of information. And you're also going to be working with alignment of that information. So sometimes left, right, center, up in the upper part of the cell and the lower part of the cell, those kinds of things. So you're going to have a lot of occasion to create it the way that you want to. So I want to show you a good example of that first, and then we'll talk about how to make those kinds of things happen. So I'm going to go to the File tab, and I'm going to click on New, and you can search for different templates. You can look at different types of categories, and obviously scroll up and down here, or go out to the web where they have all kinds of templates available. But I wanted to show you this one. It's called Cash Flow Projection. It's a template that's already built, so I'm just going to click on it. I'm going to click Create. This one was created by Microsoft, by the way. So here it is. It's the file called Cash Flow Projection, and then it puts a 1 at the end of it because it's a default file at this point. But look at everything that you already have. I mean, you've got a font that's, when I click here, it's Arial 24 point, it's bold, it's a left align, and it's in the middle of the cell. Okay, it's also doing what's called a merge and center, which is a really great feature in most cases, but you want to be careful when you implement it. We'll talk more about that when we get to that. And you're seeing all of this information in here, so it's very bold. This is what this is about. You have a company name that's just a little bit lower font at 12. You have a date, which is a very light color. It's still the same font. It's a little bit lower size. It's not bold, those kinds of things. So those are all examples of different fonts, but look how it communicates. So it's explaining right up front what this is about, what the company is. Obviously, it's templated here for you to put that in there, and then a different date, whatever you want to put in there. Now, the other thing, if you look at this, we have a light gray fill, and then we have, or it might be a green, but then you have another shade here, but it's a little bit darker. So much like a register, when you're doing your checkbooks, you may have different colored lines to help you break that apart, and that's done intentionally. Okay, these are all left aligned, by the way. These by default text aligns to the left. Okay, and then you have numbers. When you see the numbers, they're typically aligned right. That's the default. So again, another separation of what you're seeing on your spreadsheet. Then as we come down, we see a whole new color code. Again, a light and then a darker of the same color. So it's a good way to move eyes. It's a good way to separate information. Again, we have another color of a different type of green, and it's shading down through there. And then you have sizing. Again, this is Arial 12, while most of this is down to Arial 9, so forth. Okay, even on the tabs, we have colors and shadings and fills. So be aware that good use of your font and your formatting, like fills, and the alignment of that information can really make a difference. So I'm going to close this file. There we go. And I'm not going to save anything on it. So with a new blank workbook, I'm going to show you a little bit about fonts and more about alignment, and also this area of working with fills so that you can separate data and separate the presentation of information. Now, before we do this, I'm going to zoom in again. I'm going to the bottom right corner, hitting that plus sign until I get about 200%. So it's a little bit easier to see it on your screen. You may do it for yourself just to make it easier to work with data. So when we were looking at that example, you had font sizes, different types of fonts going on. So let's just start typing in here. I'm going to put in Checkbook Register. I'm going to hit enter so it'll come down. I'm just going to put in May 3, 2013, hit the down arrow, and then we'll try entry, amount, and then total. Something like that. So something very simple, just some data in here to set it all up. So I'm going to look at Checkbook Register. Now, Checkbook Register doesn't fit in all of column A, so it's running over into column B. For example, when I click on B1, you'll see it's not even available. So just be aware that when you're typing and it goes into another cell, it's actually available in the cell that it started in. So even though it could go across the top row, it may only be in that cell. So A1 is a font, Calibri, and it's 11 point. Okay, and right now it's basically a black text on, in this case, a white background of the spreadsheet. Also, it is bottom aligned, meaning it's along the bottom of that cell. Now, that doesn't look dramatic there, but when I open this up, now I can definitely tell it is at the bottom of that cell. So right up here with alignment, if I do middle align, there it goes to the middle, or I do top alignment, it goes to the top. And just to make this a little bit easier to see visually, I'm going to open up that cell so we have more room to look at that. Okay, so this is top alignment, center alignment, bottom alignment. Now, along with this, you can do left align, which is the default for text. When we put in the date, notice that when I click in here, it's definitely on the right side of that cell. That's the default for calendar items, dates. In fact, if I put in an amount here, let's say 50, and I hit tab to come out of it or enter, notice it automatically right aligns. So in your alignment, even though it's not showing up here, it's defaulting to the right for numbers and left for text. Okay, so when I'm looking at Checkbook Register, I might want to put it in the middle here, and I might want to put it in the middle of the cell. So let me make that larger. So I go left, middle, right. Okay, so lots of different effects depending on where you put it within that cell. So alignment can really help separate things or draw attention to things. So that's what you'll use that for. Now, since we're working with a font like Calibri 11 point, I can make this larger. There's an 18 point that fills it out. I may like a different look, and because that's directly under the fonts, I'm going to move this over just so we can get a little bit different look at this. Get on that in there. Which one's it in? There it is. See, I clicked on D1, and now I have Checkbook Register. So that tells me I'm on the cell that I want to work with. So I'm going to hit the down arrow. And there's a little bit different version. Here's agency, and I'm not going to try to name all these as we go, so many of them. But what's nice is I'm able to see what it will look like if I decide to choose that particular one. So I can choose from any of these. Your system may have more than the default set, but there are definitely a lot of different choices that you can work with. So I'll try that one. There we go. And now that I've got it there, I'm going to move it back. We'll show you how to do that. Let me make sure I got the right cell here. There we go. So I'm working with this cell. I have a font that I've changed to Kelowna MT. It's 18 point. I can also hit the up arrow here, which is increase font size or reduce font size. I can make it bold, italics, underline. Now this is a basic underline. You can also do a double underline, okay? And that's to the text. Because we're working in Excel and you work a lot with numbers, there is a different type of underline called accounting underline, where it's a little bit separated from the data so that it's not just seen as an underline. Okay, so I'm going to take that back to single underline and take underline off. So turning these on and off is just simply, clicking on them. You do have keyboard commands. Italics is Control-I, bold is Control-B, and Control-U for underline. Okay, so as you're working with this, it does allow you to separate information or give it a really bold heading like we're doing here. I can increase font sizes, or I can drop that down and choose the size I want. The borders, that's the border of the cell. So you can put a thick box border around it. You can put a border just along the bottom, the top, the left, the right. And we'll do more of that as we start to build different types of spreadsheets to separate things, or to give it a line down it, so that we know that there is a separation. So I'm going to skip that for now, but that's how you would do that. And then right here, this is fill. So we've shown a little bit about how fills can separate information. You may want this to come in right up front as just a light green, filling it in the back there. Okay, so that's an easy way to do it. And then when you get down to these main categories, you might want to do a different type of fill, maybe a darker green. There we go. So we saw that before. We saw a lighter shade of a color and then a darker shade to separate entries. So you might do that as you go down here and select, different rows to have different colors as well. So, you can start here and do a lighter shade, that kind of thing, and then do a darker shade. Very easy. Here we go. Okay. And since that's going to be that color, then maybe I'm going to go with a different color here as well. So I'm going to go a darker. There we go. So you can repeat this all the way down. That's a good way to separate out information. And since I've got this information here, I might want to center align it. Or I may not want this center align. I may want those two center align. I want this on the left. So I can do all these kinds of things. I may not want the date there. I may want it to the left as well. I may want to bring it in a little bit more. So this is called increase or decrease indent. So if I'm left aligned, I may want to bring it over a little bit more. Bring it back one. Okay. Now that's different from center aligning. It puts it all the way there. And I can't really go left or right on that, other than it pushes it back to a left alignment, and then I can start pushing it over. So I may want it there instead. Okay, maybe it's the same thing with the entry. Bring it over so it's aligned a little bit more. There we go. Okay, so we're talking about filling, different things that you can do with fonts. One of the other things that we can do, let me take these, and the font color is this letter A with a color under it, and we could choose a different color just to make it stand out as well. Do those oranges on the green. That's a good contrast type color. So that's for fonts, for the actual color. There's more colors to work with. You can choose them from here. You can put in as a color code, or for RGB or HSL. And standard, this is a nice wheel. What's nice is that it shows you what the current color is and then what it will look like after you've made your choice, if you make a different choice. So I'm going to hit cancel there. All right. So those are the different options by default you have with fonts. You get a down arrow here, and you'll get some extra effects like strike through, superscript, so it puts it up and smaller, or subscript, takes it lower. So you might use those for trademarks or registration type fonts. They combine things like bold, italic, regular, and font sizes here as well. And then all of your different font options. So you get a little bit of an idea of what it's going to look like, and that's available. Also, your fill is here. One of the other things that you can do with the fill is it gives you an option for fill effects. So if you like it being, a darker shade of the color here and the upper part lighter, that's a horizontal. Here's a vertical, diagonal, up, down, corner, center. Okay, so I'll do horizontal. We'll choose this one. I'll click OK. And the color is not what I want, so I'm going to take it back to that green. Fill effects. And we'll take this. This will be the easier way to do it. There we go. There I can see it. Okay. So now that text is hard to see, so I'm going to bold it. It's still hard to see, so I'm going to change the color of it, make it a darker. And there you go. So that's working with fill and fonts. We've done a little bit with alignment. We even did some spacing here, or what's called indenting. You can also do some unique things, like do Checkbook Register. I can drop this down and I can angle it clockwise. Now the problem with that is it's running out of room, so I'm going to open that up. Okay, just show you what they look like. And down arrow, angle clockwise. Vertical, that's going to be a lot of text going. That's going up and down. You can turn it to the side, going up or down. And then you can do a format cell alignment, which opens up that box we were working with fonts. Here's alignment. One of the cool things you can do here is make it however you want. You can just drag it the way that you want it there, and I click OK. And it's not quite the harsh, up and down that one was. So I'm going to undo and do it that way. So just some different things that you can work with here. When you want to undo that without undoing a lot of other things, you'll probably go back to format cell alignment and just bring this back to no degrees, so it's 0. You can even type that in. I'll click OK. There we go. So we have all of that listed. Now, sometimes you don't want a cell to be this large, meaning going from left to right. In fact, one of the reasons you may not want to is because it's messing up this cell. It's too big. The entries aren't going to be that many characters. So what I want is this to say check register, but I want to have it in a smaller cell size. So I'm going to drag this here and see how it overrides it. It doesn't have anywhere to go. So that's where wrap text will come in. So I'm going to click wrap text. I have to be on the cell I want. There we go. Wrap text. And now it's exactly the size that I want it, because the text was able to stay within the cell and the cell can be smaller. So that's not a bad size there. Merge and center is kind of the opposite of that. So I'm going to take off wrap text. And I want Checkbook Register here, but I don't want it to mess up the rest of the format. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select cells A, B, and C and just click on Merge and Center. So what it does is it takes all 3 of those cells, click on it, and now all 3 A, B, C, 1 is now all A1. So I go to D1, it's by itself, but I click anywhere in here, it's now A1 because it's merged and it's centered across that there. Okay. Now there are other options to that. We've got merge and center, merge across, where it's just making it one large cell, but then I can, make it left, I can make it right, I can do, top, bottom, middle. So I have a lot more options as far as if I want to move it around versus just merge and center. Okay. Merging cells is just that. It's not trying to move the text or anything like that. It's just merging them, and then we can unmerge them. So if I unmerge it, now you've got C and B1 are all by themselves, and A1 is back to itself. So just different things that can happen there that are really good to learn and to do. You're going to have a lot more options with alignment, wrap text, shrink to fit, which would take this text and shrink it within that area, so it actually changes the font size for you. So some great options, a lot to explore there as well, but using your fonts to draw attention things within the spreadsheet, alignment that allows things to line up very nicely or to separate it from information, those are good. And then your fills can help distinguish information on the spreadsheet. We're just giving you some very simple examples, but a good way to get started with learning those concepts.